Fresh and Buds.
All right, welcome back to another episode of Fresh and Buds. I'm your host, Tommy Fresh, and you are all my buds. I'm joined by a great bud, Mr. Drew Cordell. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, Tommy, I'm doing well. How are you doing, man?
I'm hanging in. It's been a busy few weeks, I think, for both of us. We got a lot of, I guess, like data we're looking at in terms of what really performed in the Proquest and the calling Indianapolis, and we're a week away from the banning or unbanning, as some people are calling for, in next week, at the first week of April. We will see how that goes, but happy to have you on, Drew. And we got a fun one. This is episode 33, and I was looking at that. I was like, oh, 2 threes. We're going to do a bunch of top threes in the main topic of this episode. But first, let's kind of catch up on what you've been up to, Drew. You've been pretty busy since we had you on last. First of all, you have written a few articles for LSS on the official Flesh and Blood website. Can you tell us a little bit about those and how they came to be?
Yeah, definitely. That was a super cool experience and definitely a highlight for me as a content creator in Flesh and Blood. I'd reached out to LSS directly, really after building up my portfolio of work across all the sites that I write for, and just said, hey, can we work together? I'd love to be able to write on the official site. Got together with the creative department from there, started the conversation, and ultimately landed on the series that I was able to write, providing Proquest coverage, talking about the strategy of things, how to build a deck for that, and really just what to expect for players who maybe haven't been to a competitive event before for a card game, how to get ready and boost their chance of success going into Proquest. But was extremely honored to be the first non-LSS employee to contribute official season content like that on the website, and just really a fantastic experience for me.
And they've been great to work with. I mean, I think it's safe to say that the Flesh and Blood community as a whole is very impressed with LSS and the job that they do, and obviously the product that they put out. They were great to work with.
Oh, absolutely. It was a fantastic experience, and really they let me put my own creative footprint on everything that I was making for the series. I was able to workshop the articles with them directly, provide input and ideas for the content, and then work on that with them. But yeah, like you said, they've just been fantastic to the community. It's really refreshing to play a game like Flesh and Blood where you can tell that they just genuinely care. They're really involved with everything the community is doing, what they're playing, the general perceptions of the game and its health. They're just there and involved, and it's super refreshing.
Now, it has to be interesting. This is a little side note on that, because I know that you had known when the articles are coming out because you had written them, and then they kind of choose when they post them. And how was it dealing with a company that was on the other side of the world, a totally different time zone than it almost felt like confusing because you were like, oh, I think it's coming up, I don't know, and then all of a sudden it was there, and you were like, oh, I guess they posted it.
Yeah, for sure. And it's a killer time zone. So for me, being in Texas and Central Time, they're 19 hours ahead. So it got a little bit easier in my head when I just started to say, okay, they're like X number of hours behind me, but they're in tomorrow. Instead of thinking of it with that just huge incremental timeline. I do think they pushed up the schedule a couple of times, but yeah, on my Patreon, I was like, it's coming out in one of these 3 days, so keep an eye out. It's got hard to convert the time zone differences.
Yeah. Well, I could say from experience because in the past month, I've had two buds from Australia on the show. I had Dead Summer Art last week, and then we had the Tall Timmy. And I think both times I got the time that we were recording wrong. Luckily, I wasn't doing anything anyway, and I was able to hop on. But I was like, man, I like when I planned it, I was like, I made sure I did the math, and I was still wrong. So it's very, very tough. Now, are there any more plans with LSS going forward for any kind of content or anything in general with them?
Yeah, we're certainly keeping the prospects open right now. I don't know if you've seen over the past week or couple of weeks or so, but there's a lot more guest writers coming on, and they're really trying to feature a lot of different voices from the community. So it's really awesome to get to see all these perspectives. But I definitely let them know I was interested in continuing, and they were in general just very pleased with the article series I wrote. So hopefully we'll be able to continue that relationship for years to come, and I'll be able to create a lot more content on the website.
Yeah, yeah, and especially since you did the ProQuest kind of coverage, we do have a second ProQuest season for 2022 announced. I believe it starts the weekend of the Pro Tour and ends in early June, before the new booster set that we don't know much about yet is out. How do you feel about that? Because I think, the thoughts here are it might be a stale, like kind of a stale format at that point.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to see what happens with the banned and restricted announcement, as well as anything potentially around the living legend for Bravo Star the show. Excuse me. I think it'll get a lot more interesting though as we get closer. Maybe with some of those cards out or strategies rotating out, some other decks, hopefully multiple, would be able to step in, kind of to that triangle meta or rock paper scissors that we're seeing right now in the format.
Yeah, it does feel like almost like it's almost like they want to make sure Bravo Star of the Show gets the living legend status right before that next set. Though I don't think he's gonna have any trouble based on his performance in the ProQuest. Now, you did these articles with LSS, which is awesome. I read all of them, and they were very informative and interesting. But the Drew train did not stop there. You also announced and launched your Patreon. From what I could tell, it's been a great success. You did talk with our buddy Flake on the Instant Speed podcast about the master classes, but what for my listeners, what are those, and what else are you offering on there?
Definitely, yeah. It's been really cool and exciting to launch the Patreon, kind of build this community with a lot of my most engaged readers and supporters. But yeah, on Flake's podcast on the Instant Speed, talked about Champion University. Just last weekend, I kicked off the first lecture for that. Really, what that is, it's a monthly program of masterclass lectures. So you think about it like showing up to a college class, you go and you hear a lecture from someone who's really knowledgeable about a topic, and they go into a really deep dive format of what that is. And you're able to attend that live, so it's a lot different than just looking at a video or watching one on YouTube. And then at the end, there's Q&A sessions. So really design this as a cool opportunity for players to get the perspectives of some of the best players in the game. And while I did the first lecture myself, have a ton of amazing guest lectures coming up on the show. Notably in this coming month in April, have Max Thomas or Saint Nothing, and then in May, our mutual friend Dalen Mack. So super excited for that. But other than the Champion University, I've also got my always up-to-date deck list on there that are competitive between all my content releases, so you can always see the latest and greatest of what I'm working on in my decks. Got some exclusive content, and also create a season recommended deck list and matchup and sideboarding guide each season. So with the second ProQuest season, I had a recommendation for the first one, recommendation and all those guides coming out for Skirmish, and now I'll have another one coming out in May for the second ProQuest season this year. So just lots of cool stuff on there. I'm working with the community to build it out and just making sure it's great for everyone who wants to get involved with that.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm very fortunate to be able to kind of lurk in that Discord and see what's going on, and it seems to be a great group of people who do want to learn and also want to help each other learn and ask each other questions, which is just pretty awesome. And it is great to see, and I did see, like the Buds Discord, you did add a food and drink picks section, which we love food over here, so that's always great to see. Now, I'm sure that a lot of your patrons have used those tools in the past ProQuest season. And speaking of, what are your thoughts on the meta coming out of this, ProQuest and calling and battle hardened season?
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat as you right now, and a lot of people in the community. We're just kind of waiting around to see what's going to change ahead of the next ProQuest season. I don't have a PTI myself this time around, so I am planning on playing the calling in New Jersey, but otherwise I've been doing a lot of blitz testing and gearing up for the Battle Hardened. It's going to be an SCG Con in Dallas, I believe this coming weekend actually. So just been gearing up for that, but the meta really, I think Blitz is super fun and interesting, just in general between Blitz and Classic Constructed. Flesh and Blood is just so fast right now. I've written a little bit about it, but there's, in many matchups, the second cycle has completely disappeared. Decks are just doing extremely powerful and fast things, and it's been really interesting and fun. I've enjoyed this meta quite a lot, even if it may seem a little bit more narrow in Classic Constructed, but just like many other players, waiting to see what's going to happen next week with the banned and restricted, and then potentially Bravo getting Living Legend status.
Yeah, that would be interesting to see. Now, I know you mentioned the kind of the second cycle really disappearing in this meta, but it was interesting to see Michael Hamilton with the control-y version of Starvo take down the calling. I have to imagine you as a kind of the Guardian guy looking at that and getting a little excited to play that version.
Definitely. And I've, since week one, I've been on a version that really doesn't prioritize fusing. Kind of just call it Bravo Star of the Show good stuff, but, or Captain Crunch. The cards just have crunchier stats and they're better. But with my configuration, it's been doing quite well. I've placed at least top 8 in a couple of the Classic Constructed leagues I've played with it. And on average, I'm only using the hero ability maybe once per game, and sometimes I don't even use it at all. It's just really centered around the massive card pool that this hero has and having access to cards like Crowd of Seeds, Crippling Crush, Awakening, all these really cool cards all in the same deck has just been fantastic.
Yeah, and I know we've talked about the ban announcement next week, and there is no doubt that Starvo is really taken away. Do you have any kind of predictions leading into the ban announcement?
Yeah, I really do anticipate maybe 2 things happening here. The first I could see happening is that Oaken Old becomes an Oldham specialization card. I mean, he's on the artwork, and it's just kind of a card that it's not as powerful as Crippling Crush per se, but it does mirror a lot of the same functionality. Having access to those 6 cards in the same deck between those the 2 individual cards themselves has just been perhaps a little too strong. So I could see that certainly becoming a specialization card for Oldham. And I could also see some potential changes or a ban around Awakening. And it's even in Blitz, I do see Awakening as kind of a problematic card at the moment. It creates some play patterns that are not necessarily fun to play against, and they do kind of take away agency from the players who are playing against Awakening. It's kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't attack them, because you need to kill them to win the game, but also if you don't manage your life total at the same time, which Awakening requires the Guardian player to do as it should, but you're also putting the added pressure on your opponent that, okay, I have to manage my life just as closely as them. I'm incentivized not to block when maybe I would like to, and just create some patterns where it's maybe too strong and efficient at what the card does.
Yeah, and it is interesting, the Oaken Old idea there. I mean, people have been saying that since Starvo really kind of started slapping people with that card. Oldham is on the art, which is it should have been, especially over Endless Winter. And maybe if they switched the arts at some point, it would have made sense. But as someone who played some Oldham as well, it always performed well in Oldham, right? Oak and Old.
Oh
But
yeah, for sure.
for some reason, in like, I guess there's a couple of reasons in Starvo, it feels so much stronger, and because you just hit that fuse so much more often, and you're just not blocking like Oldham likes to do. So it's just it feels pretty oppressive along with the crippling crush. So I do agree. Um, Now, what would you do in LSS's position for this ban? First of all, is there anything you would unban?
Have to be very careful about that in the past. And of course, I haven't ever really played a class in depth where there have been these types of bannings before. So
Mm-hmm.
I get, especially if you're playing this deck, you've invested in the cards, you enjoy the hero and what they're trying to do. It can be really hard not to take a ban announcement like that emotionally and take it personally. So this time around, I'm expecting some Guardian nerfs, but I certainly do not envy LSS's position right now. I think this is just the case of the game is extremely complex, and
Mm-hmm.
it's only getting more complex as more sets are being released. And as this has happened, we've really seen a pattern where it takes longer and longer for the community to figure out what the best decks are going to be. And even when they do, some new tech will emerge. This like deck out of nowhere will show up. It'll win a huge event, get all this attention, and just shake the meta to its roots. So I really do not know what I would do if I was in LSS's position. I do think for the Bravo situation, the Living Legends system more or less is working as intended. It's probably working a lot faster than they anticipated in this
Mm-hmm.
case for this hero, but I don't know if I'd necessarily ban Bravo Star of the Show ahead of that Living Legends status, but I would be looking at cards like Oakenold and Awakening if I was in LSS's position.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I mean, I think Awakening seems maybe the most likely because it seems to be as you said, kind of oppressive card in both formats, and uh, and just kind of getting rid of that would be pretty. I don't know if it would fix everything, but it would definitely allow some other gameplay to happen that isn't as feel bad. I guess uh, I guess like
Yeah.
when they play the Awakening, it kind of feels bad because you were just like really giving it to them, and it's like,
Definitely.
uh, what can you do? But we will see what happens next week. But as of now, it is what it is, and I think actually I just said it is what it is, and I know Capolo, who we've had on the show, has started to want to make a drinking game out of me saying it is what it is. And I can't help it. I'm from New Jersey, and this is just how we talk. But so we are also in the midst of the Blitz skirmish season right now. What are you playing?
Yeah, the Blitz has been a lot of fun. I've got one skirmish coming up in a couple weeks. I'm actually driving out about 200 miles. My brother and his
Whoa.
girlfriend, they live in Wichita Falls in Texas, which super big state, but there's an event out there that for a skirmish, I'm going to go try to play. I'll stay with him and hang out. It'll be cool getting to see them. But I've really been playing a ton of Oldham as my main hero. Right now, I think Oldham is the best in the format. Viscera is also extremely powerful. Kasai and even Kano with Aether Wildfire can do some really crazy things. But I've just been playing Awakening into Pulverize, and it's been working.
Yeah, I actually did pick up your uh, Oldham Blitz deck and played it in the Team Blitz event at Calling Indianapolis. I definitely, I mean, it performed well, but I need to play a little bit faster, I think, with that deck because I did go to time twice. Now, are there any other decks that you would recommend for players to pick up in these coming weekends?
Yeah, definitely for skirmish. I think Viscera in general does have an extremely high ceiling, but also with kind of a more mid-range configuration, it can also have a lower floor. Same with Kasai. So if you don't have a ton of time to practice, I think both of these heroes are going to be very strong choices. Oldham is faster than ever before, and that's not saying much. I went to time extremely frequently in the Tales of Aria Blitz season with Oldham before we got pulverized, and had access to some of these new cool cards that can actually close out the game and not have to worry about time as much. I actually talked about a lot about it and wrote that in the previous season, Oldham's greatest enemy was the round timer, and it really was. That was his worst matchup. And it's certainly a lot better now, but we'll have to reevaluate if Awakening goes from the format.
Yeah, we will see. Now, did I forget that? Would you unban anything, by the way? Because I'm thinking because like there are some bans that some people are a little iffy on that people have been calling for an unbanning. Mostly lightning, ball lightning.
Yeah, I would be really hesitant to unban Ball Lightning until Bravo Star of the Show hits Living Legend status. At that point, I think we may be able to bring that back in, especially with the errata to Briar. I don't think it would be as problematic and could actually be a really cool card for Blexi and Briar with those kind of revised strategies after that.
Yeah, my only problem with ball lightning is some of the rules interactions that you have with like the replacement effect.
Mm-hmm.
Even I think I've mentioned it on the show before, but in limited, because you're not really playing runaways in constructed, but the runaways wouldn't really prevent the extra damage, and it seemed weird, but yeah, what can you do? But now, are there any dark horses in both Blitz and CC right now?
In Blitz, I'd really say that that's going to be KO. This is a hero that, with the new cards, if you roll well enough on dice, you will roll through even the most defensive of decks. Like it's no big deal. You roll poorly, it's not going to go well. But I think KO may have the potential if you're a player who's just lucky at rolling dice, which it's not me at all. I'm terrible on KO. I think I've already told you the story about playing the KO deck at the commoner event, side event at the calling, and going 0-4 and losing to a player who it was literally his first day playing the game. It made his weekend, so that more than made it up for me just losing that event, but could not have had worse luck on the dice rolls as KO there. For CC right now, I think Lexi is actually quite strong. She's got very reasonable matchups into all three of the main contenders right now. Lots of options in the sideboard and what she can do to combat each of those main strategies. And then just a fairly strong and proactive game plan where she can get ahead and really hold the tempo based off how efficient those arrow cards are. The problem is if you have an offhand, and this is just kind of universal for Ranger, you don't have arrows in the hand for whatever reason or another attack, you're really going to suffer, and it's going to be an uphill battle.
Yeah, I think Lexi always kind of sneaks in there, and I don't expect her to get any weaker going forward, but it is one of those things where you could have a dark horse in Classic Constructed, but Starvo can also reveal 6 or 7 times in a row against you, and not much you could do about that. But we will see what happens next week. One quick question before we get into quick crack-a-pack. As a huge Guardian player and yourself, were you did you get a chance to watch Michael Hamilton win that calling in Indianapolis?
This match or the final match there has been on my watch list for longer than I'd like. I'm going to sit down and watch that soon, but I'm very familiar with Michael and a huge fan. He's just an incredible player in the game, and looking forward to all he does going forward here, and excited to catch that match.
Yeah, pretty incredible. I knew he had won the calling in Orlando that was going on during the Nationals with Oldham. And then I got to watch him at Indianapolis, which was really a treat. He kind of had this like incredible poise that you really need to have with Guardian, and it did feel like less of a Starvo deck I mean, it was Starvo, but it felt like less of a Starvo match the way he played it, and that game went on forever. It felt like, because he had complete control of the game the whole time, and that was really cool to see, especially at that kind of level. So, just wanted to get your kind of ideas on him. Hopefully you get to watch that one soon. It was pretty intense. So, let's get into a quick Crack-A-Pack. I have a pack of Everfest. I've missed the Crack-A-Pack the past 2 episodes because I moved, and things are unorganized here, and we're gonna go through the cards here real quick. We got Wax On, the Ninja Defense reaction. This is the blue one. I don't think this has really seen any play. Maybe some I guess mirror match implications.
Yeah, I haven't seen any play for this one personally, but definitely a cool card. I'm a big fan of Karate Kid and Cobra Kai, so hopefully we'll see the Wax Off in the future too, and maybe some cool interaction between them.
Oh yeah. I mean, that might be the card that puts Wax On over the edge there. Next we got Outland Skirmish. This is 0 for warrior actions, 3 defense. Your next one-handed weapon attack this turn gains +3, and next time a weapon attack this turn hits, create a copper token. Go again. Now, is this played in Kasai?
Definitely. I'm running this on my Kasai list, both in red and blue at the moment. Just a very strong card. It does kind of everything you want in the deck. It's going to power up your sabers, make them a little more difficult to block, and then it's also going to just help with your copper generation as you work toward the Blood on Her Hands turn and comboing off with that. Just having that threat means your opponent's going to probably want to commit a little bit of armor or at least a card from hand to stop you rather than just holding the full grip.
Yeah, pretty powerful. Next we have the yellow Bear Fangs. I've seen this in some Rhinar lists, and even a couple like Leviah lists. It's very high roll. The red one only is probably good enough. You draw a card, discard, and if it's a 6 more, it gets +2. Any thoughts on that card?
Yeah, it seems interesting, especially as we get the classic battle set. There may be some new brute cards coming out that may warrant this as an inclusion. Haven't really seen it floating around too many lists at the moment, but it is a pretty cool card.
Yeah, definitely cool. This and Wild Ride. I mean, you see a lot more Wild Ride because the Go Again's pretty good, but it's tough to play cards that you can't block with in this meta right now. So
definitely.
Next we got Fatigue Shot. I've seen a lot of play with Fatigue Shot. This is the blue one, so not really the blue one as much, but it seems to be some good tech for Lexi, and I guess Azalea to a certain extent as well.
Definitely, yeah. I've been very impressed with Fatigue Shot. Just a good option that you can pull in a couple different matchups, especially with a Bravo Star of the show and those configurations that are trying to fuse every turn. Gets a lot less intimidating facing down a big attack with that hero ability when the attack power is cut in half versus coming in for some huge amount with the Dominate there and Go Again.
Mm-hmm. Very, very impressive. It feels like a must block sometimes when you see that across the board. Next is a card that actually sees quite a bit of play, at least in iterations of Viscera I've played. It's Reek of Corruption. This is the red one, 2 for 4, and if it aura is made on hit, discard a card.
Yeah, this one's pretty cool. I haven't included it in my Viscera list yet. Still running Consuming Volition kind of in the same slot that it's competing for at the moment, but definitely a card I'm looking out for in the future.
Yeah, I played a list that played both Reek and Consuming, just because I guess the on hit's so potent against Starvo, though the break point's a little tough at the 4 with the Crown of Seeds in 1 block, so it can be tough. Now next is Payload. This is, I guess, may see some play in some boost dash. This is the yellow one. This is the one, if you boosted this turn, it gets Dominate. The red comes in for 6, which is pretty strong for 2.
Yeah, seems like a decent option to boost there. I have not played very much Mechanologist outside of some earlier iterations around Monarch, but this is one I'd potentially look out for in the future.
Yeah, definitely. We do have a wizard action aura. This is pyroglyphic protection. If your hero would be dealt arcane damage, prevent 1 arcane damage that source would deal, and then you destroy it at the beginning of your action phase. I mean, I guess this is some kind of tech for OTK Viscera, but I don't even know if Kano's even really worried about that, because I think Kano just wants to win as fast as possible. Sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't think this is one we're really going to see in Blitz. And there's not a ton of Kano and Classic Constructed. And like you said, they're just there to win fast or lose. So
Yeah, which is seems like more often than not is the lose side of that equation. We have the foil in the swing. This is 0 for an attack reaction warrior. You can only play it if you attack 2 or more times with weapons. This card I don't think is really that great at all.
I'm running the red one in my Kasai list right now. You do get that the plus as you swing the second weapon, so you don't have to attack a third time. It was a little confusing when I first read it. I just had to kind of confirm that with everything, but it's been decent. It's certainly not the strongest card in the list, but it's one that typically when it shows up, I'm not too upset about it, just with how much go again there is.
True. Yeah. I guess in Kasai probably pans out a little bit better. Next, speaking of not the best, we do have a talisman. There was quite a bit of those in Everfest. It's Talisman of War Pharisee, yellow one, 0 cost. Let's go again, and when a source you control deals exactly 2 damage to an opposing hero, destroy it in all cards and all arsenals.
Oh man, you open the Command and Conquer reprint.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is all of the talismans pretty much, except for maybe the recompense. I'm just don't think they're going to see a ton of play. Actually wrote an article about all the items in Everfest a while back and what they could do. And really the conclusion I came to was that none of them are going to be super impactful if they're played fairly, meaning you draw the card and play it from your hand. If you have some way to cheese it out, maybe some of these get a lot more compelling, just in kind of a really gimmicky, flood the board with amulets and talismans, but otherwise not so sure.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. But the next rare is a card that is quite good and playable. It's the blue Thunderquake, 6 for an 8 attack guardian attack, and has the new keyword heave 3.
Yeah, definitely love this one. I've got the blues and most of my guardian list right now. This is a card that's just very strong and that you can heave it, put it into your arsenal, get all those seismic surge tokens, play an attack that's not the Thunderquake on your next turn. And then when you need to actually clear this from your arsenal, it only costs 6 and then it comes in for 8. So still a very strong attack, but can help you kind of defer some of those resources ahead and maybe play something like a Pulverize and hard cast it per se.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, Thunderquake, I believe is that in your Oldham list for Blitz?
Definitely, yeah. I've got Thunderquake in there. I've got that in my original Bravo deck. I'm playing it in my Starvo list. Pretty much all my Guardian shells right now have got Thunderquake.
Yeah, pretty useful. Which initially maybe we thought maybe Macho Grande would have been the blue early on, and we saw Thunderquake be spoiled. So yeah, that's a crack pack. I'll put those away for a giveaway, which will start going on in the Discord, which is the Buds, which is in the link tree. So we're gonna get to the main topic. It is episode 33, which is awesome in its own right. When I started the podcast, I didn't know if I would get to episode 33. I'm glad I did. I'm hoping to get to maybe episode 333 at one point, but I thought it would be fun, with kind of an off week for Flesh and Blood to do kind of a bunch of top 3s together. How does that sound, Drew?
Yeah, that sounds great. And just to add to the 3s, I'd also like to note this is our 3rd episode together on the podcast, so that's also super cool.
That is true. I did have a note about that, and I forgot to put it into my own show notes, which is awesome. So it's God, I gotta think of a really cool. Because right now I just have the episode name as the Threes episode. But I gotta come up with something a little more clever. Um, so to start, I felt like we should do each of our top three heroes. I'll let you go first. If you want to, maybe we'll count down from three, two, one.
Yeah, so number 3 for me is going to be Viscera. Just a hero I really enjoy, just super cool hero power, and I really like his character design. I'm a big fan of Steve Argyle and his artwork, and just everything about Viscera is just really cool to me. I love the split damage approach, the fact he feels like a powerful warrior, but can also leverage that arcane aspect there. Number 2 for me is definitely going to be Bravo. Bravo's the hero that I really started with the original version of him in the game that really drew me to it. I liked his art, all the play style, just everything about the class was super cool for me. And then top 1 is going to be Oldham. Really just a hero I was able to take a super deep dive into, play just hundreds of hours with him over the course of Tales of Aria, and build him from the ground up. It's just a hero I really enjoy to play, both in Classic Constructed and Blitz. How about you, Tommy?
Yeah, so I mean, like, a note about. I guess I'll start with my third is also Oldham, which we did on the first episode that we had you on. We talked a lot about Oldham. For me, Oldham, I think I fell in love with Oldham before I even knew what his hero ability was. I saw the art, and I was like, oh my god, this seems so sweet. I hope he's good, and he ended up being good. A lot of the decks that I play now aren't as defensive as him in nature, but I do really love picking up Oldham. I super stoked to play Oldham in Blitz, just because I had fallen off Oldham in Constructed a little bit. It just didn't feel with all the Prism running around, didn't feel like the right choice, unfortunately. But love his design, love what he does. Kind of like I always felt when I first started playing Flesh and Blood that Oldham or it needed like some cool control character hero, and Oldham definitely filled that in. Number 2 is actually Bolton, and I don't I have like kind of this soft spot for warrior as a class, and for some reason I think Bolton, I was one of the first for when I first started playing Flesh and Blood. I bought all 4 of the Monarch Blitz decks, and Bolton was like a lot of fun. I was like, oh man, he's got these axes and all these other things, and then I opened a foil, rainbow foil Raiden, and I was like, this is one of the coolest weapons I've seen. I still think Raiden is probably really up there for me, and I like that it takes a lot of work to make Bolton tick. I don't really play a whole lot of the Sabers kind of OTK Bolton, but I like that Raiden Bolton deck, and it's just you have to put stuff into the soul just to like get the engine going, which is like a lot of fun, and another great character design. And then I think everybody knows that my number 1 is Leviah. She's my favorite. Brute as a class kind of speaks to me, kind of like swing big and stuff like that, and it's another cool thing. Like, I'm going to talk about it in a future video about my new Ravenous Meat-Axe Leviah build. I had started playing a lot of Leviah. I've played with Hexagore, Mandible Claws, and even Romping Club. But I remember that Blitz deck with the Meat-Axe, and like it really clicking with me, saying like, oh, I get to fill my graveyard by just swinging my weapon. It's like super cool, and that's kind of her fuel. And I just love her play style, and then also just aesthetically, so like really brutal and gruesome. I love horror, and all the attack actions are pretty intense as well. So those are my top 3. Any thoughts on Leviah and Bolton?
Oh yeah, they're definitely awesome heroes, and I played a lot of Leviah in Blitz season of Monarch when she first came out. I haven't done a ton of Classic Constructed with her, but I got my cousin Matthew, who's a huge Magic the Gathering player, a very competitive guy. I got him into the Flesh and Blood game, and he's a notorious aggro player, and he just really clicked with the Leviah deck and Blitz, and actually ended up selling him all of that. I just played an event this past weekend and went 5-0 on Reiner. I don't play a lot of Brute, but I had a ton of fun, and actually got me so excited about the class and maybe some cool stuff coming out with classic battles that I bought a lot of the cards that I sold to my cousin, including the scab skin leathers, just kind of that full equipment set. So like if I want to pick up Brute in the future for classic constructed or Blitz, like it's going to be an option.
Yeah. I really do hope we get something that helps out Leviah from the classic battles, because it was a little bit disappointing. Like, other than Swing Big coming out of Everfest, it didn't really get that much juice. I mean, maybe a little bit of a wild ride, but what can you do? Next, we got top 3 legendaries. I'm gonna let you.
Yeah, this is going to be a cool one. So for me, kind of my 3 and 2 are merged into one, and that's going to be Crown of Seeds and then Rampart of the Ram's Head. For those who play or have played against Oldham, you'll know that's pretty core to his strategy. I really enjoy Crown of Seeds because it does allow you to put a card in an arsenal you wouldn't otherwise, whereas some decks may be incentivized just to keep that card in hand because it's, quote, dead. If you put it into your arsenal, you never have to deal with that situation with Crown of Seeds. You're going to be able to cycle that and then also free up some resources to maybe pair with Rampart, prevent some damage there, and just maybe keep your options open to play an instant or defense reaction on top. So those two together, just really cool legendaries that I enjoy playing. And then probably in my first slot is going to be Tectonic Plating for me. It was the first legendary I ever bought for Guardian. I don't play it a ton these days, but it's still a card that is just very close to my heart in this game, and I really just enjoy the design. Huge fan of the artwork of this one, and just think it's a beautiful card, and have a ton of fun playing that whenever I can.
Yeah. The Crown of Seas Rampart duo is going to be, I think, going to be talked about in Flesh and Blood for a long time, even when it's not going to be maybe top tier or anything like that. I think people would be like, "Oh, you remember when Crown of Seas and Rampart were playable together?" And be like, "Oh my God, that was crazy." I could just see that in down the line in a few years. Now, my number 3 is actually Valiant Dynamo. I had a tough time picking number 3, but I was thinking about either putting Scab Skins here or Valiant Dynamo, but I kind of love the design of Valiant Dynamo. Taking the counter off for swinging twice with weapons. We had a match together, and I think it ended up blocking like 7 damage against you, and it's like pretty intense. And I love the art on it, and I got to give some Warrior love in my list, and Valiant Dynamo is one that I hope to play with a lot in the future, and continue to do so. Number 2, I do have Crown of Seeds, but I don't have it paired with the Rampart combo, mostly because I always have like that itch to like make Crown of Seeds work in Briar, like a weird mid-rangey Crown of Seeds Briar. I don't think we have the card pool right now, but I do love Crown of Seeds. It's such a cool way to play the game, and I think it might be one of the best looking legendaries in the game. People could debate me on that, but that art is incredible. I did ask Chalice when I had her on the podcast to do a cosplay of it, so we'll see if she comes up with that. And number 1, I got to go with Carrion Husk. This is just such a beefy card, blocking 6. When I first started playing, it was a lot of Chain, and Carrion Husk was the first legendary I bought, and it is so intense of a card, and some people even just forget about the 6 block, which is crazy. And when the Seeds of Agony ban happened, I was looking at my cards. I was like, oh man, like what am I gonna do? And I was like, oh, you know what? I really loved playing Leviah, and I was like, oh wait, Carrion Husk is even better in Leviah. So Carrion Husk is an awesome card. Any thoughts on Dynamo and Husk?
Yeah, those are both awesome cards. I unfortunately opened a Dynamo pretty early on in a Monarch. I think I sold it for like $50 and
Oh
recently
no.
rebought it at much more for my Kasai list. And really, Crown, just super cool card. I've got just the muscle memory I have ingrained for Crown and Rampart is just I don't think I'm ever gonna be able to shake that even years from now. Just how many times I've used that. It's just I find that even when I'm not playing a class or hero that can use that, I'm sometimes reaching for it if I'm like, oh, I don't really like this card in my arsenal. Let me go ahead and crown this away. It's like, oh wait, I can't. But also just I recently listened to your episode with T, and it definitely got a laugh out of the trash can meme that he posted on Twitter and that you guys were talking about for the Carrion Husk and Leviah. But really, just it's a super powerful card, especially in that deck where you're not actually taking the damage from the Blood Dad. It's just having block 6 on a card like that. It's probably one of the most insane things ever printed, even to this day, for the Blitz format.
Oh yeah, yeah. Blitz. Oh my God. It's like over 25% of your health is it's wild. Um, but I do feel you with the Crown of Seeds. Kind of muscle memory. I have that. From playing a lot of Oldham, and then I also kind of from playing a bunch of decks with Tunic. I have that muscle memory looking over, and then it's almost like I look over to put the counter on, and then I see the carrion husk, and I smile a little bit. I'm like, "Oh, I made the right decision."
Just put a counter on it, bro.
Yeah. Now we're gonna do top 3 Majestics / Supers.
Yeah, this one was tough for me because that's really where you start to see a lot of really iconic cards for the classes that are going into your deck that's shuffled up, especially since we only have the 2 legendaries that actually go into the deck. But for number 3 here, I did actually choose an equipment card, and that's going to be Earthlore Bounty. I think the majority of the player base is still really sleeping on the power of this card. In general, I'm making up to 10 Seismic Surge a game off of this when I pair it with things like Tome of Harvest and Tome of Fiendel and just various draw effects that I have on my list. Just a card that I've really fallen in love with, and it's in most of my list has taken the slot of Tectonic Plating, and just the full extended art cold foil is just beautiful. I love that they're doing these like cool chase art cards and alternate versions of things you can look for in packs or just buy online. For number 2, I did choose Crippling Crush here. Just super iconic Guardian card. At the time, it was the most powerful attack you could throw across the table, so just always felt super cool throwing that at your opponent. And then for number 1 for me, it's unfortunately going to be Awakening. And this is a card I mean I fell in love with this card in spoiler season. I've been singing its praises since day 1 before it was really problematic, but I honestly think this thing's too good even if you take away the Earth views where it's half cost. Is how good I think this is.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I remember having you on the Oldham episode, and really kind of being like, yeah, Awakening is the real deal, and just seeing it play out since then is has been pretty intense, to say the least. Now, my number 3 is going to be Reckless Swing. I think I've won a lot of games with Reckless Swing, and I hope to win a lot more with it. It is. I don't know. It feels like it's okay. It's a little unfair, right? That you can just win on your opponent's turn. But I think it's okay to give Brute a little bit of unfairness. I think because why not? And it's a great blue too. It's just you can use it early and hopefully get to it in your second cycle. And number 2. I could have picked Command and Conquer, but I have to give number 2 to Enlightened Strike. I think Enlightened Strike is just such a cool design of a card. I think it reads as free, but it's not free, but it's still very powerful, and just the amount of utility and kind of improvisation you can have with it, I guess is a way to put it, that makes the card super powerful and potent. and hopefully we get a reprint of it soon, so it's not super expensive for new players. And then number one, actually, I'm surprised it wasn't on your list, but I have Terra Sunder, another card I've won quite a few games with, and it's just one of my favorite arts. I even did a jack-o'-lantern with that art, which ended up being pretty sweet. Yeah. Any thoughts on any of those, Drew?
Yeah, those are all awesome cards, and Reckless Swing is a super fun one. I was playing that my Leviah list too, and it is one of those cool cards that can just win on your opponent's turn. Those always feel cool, maybe a little cheap to do, but yeah, I mean, hey, it's a strategy. Like Reckless Swing, Steel Blade Shunt is a good example, and even something like Sigil of Suffering, where you can just punch them for an arcane when they're tapped out of resources on the backswing there. Those are all super cool. E-Strike's just been a fantastic card all around. Sees a ton of play all across the format. I like that it's a generic card and any hero can access that, as it does feel pretty mechanically unique for what it does.
Mm-hmm.
And then Terra Sunder, just huge fan of the card. I used to be very adamant about, okay, I'm going to pitch this on turn one. I'm going to wait for this to come around, and then I'm just going to use it to win the game. But especially in my most recent builds of Bravo Star of the Show, I'm happy to play this on turn one, swing the hammer for 5 with Dominate, and make my opponent just eat a armor block if I'm throwing it out a lot earlier than I would normally. And you could really get through their armor if you use it early, and then save your last couple of copies of it there to close out the game if you need to.
Yeah, it definitely feels like the format has kind of shaped into a world where, you know what, you got to take your punches when you can do it, and those I've even started doing the early Terra Sunder as well. It's it's super potent, super powerful. Next we got top 3 commons / rares. Go ahead.
Yeah, for me, number 3, and probably not a fair answer, but that's going to be any 3/3/3 Guardian blue attack action card. And the theme of the show, that's any blue Guardian attack that pitches for 3 resources, it costs 3 or more resources to play, and it blocks for 3. Those are, especially in older, more traditional shells of Guardian, those are going to be really just the glue that holds the entire deck together, enables things like your Anathos to come in for 6 instead of 4. Plus, it's just super on theme for this week's episode. Number 2. Yeah, number 2 for me is going to be Sink Below in red. Just a really efficient, cool defense reaction. I do really like the added benefit that you can filter your hand a little bit. You can use that to, while defending your life total and trying to stop what your opponent's doing, can also maybe improve your counterattack when it gets back around to your turn. And also just having a card that blocks for 4 can really help with some of those nasty and really just awkward break points of attacks that your opponent may throw at you. For number 1 for me, that's definitely going to be Pummel. It's just a card that wins games. I love the discard effect on this. Probably one of my favorite things to do in this game is play a red Pummel on top of Pursuit of Knowledge and get that extra intellect there, make your opponent discard. It's not super viable, but it's a huge tempo swing and super fun to do. But Pummel, thankfully, is a very competitive card in its own right outside of any combos.
Oh yeah, and you see it played in all 3 colors too, which is pretty intense. I see some people running around with OG Bravo with a rainbow pummel in there, and it's pretty scary. I guess my number 3 is actually Sigil of Suffering. I was thinking about cards. The number 1 and 2 for me were pretty easy, but I was thinking about cards I had a lot of fun playing in draft, because Tail Sealed was not too great, but draft was a lot of fun. Sigil of Suffering is such a sweet card. Kind of in the realm of Reckless Swing. I kind of like these really fun, cool D-reacts. They kind of really give some flavor and versatility to a lot of decks. I'm excited to hopefully see a lot more of it played going forward. Next we have Fate Foreseen. I put Fate Foreseen in lieu of Sink Below because I think I just want Helm of Sharp Eye to be playable, and I think Fate Foreseen helps Helm of Sharpeye really get there. I mean, not really get there, but hopefully get there one day. And I like that opt, quite a bit, but it helps you kind of set up for a longer game, which is cool. And obviously, Sync Below is probably way more powerful, but I think Fate Foreseen is more fun to play. And then number one, got to go Dread Screamer. I play Rainbow Dread Screamer in almost all my Leviah decks. Just the deck wouldn't really function without it. The go again and 3 block too, and it's just the lifeblood of Leviah.
Definitely, yeah. Those are all awesome cards, and Sigil of Suffering for me. I won a ton of games of limited with that, just pitching it early in the first turn if I could, just knowing it's going to come back around, especially in that format where opponents really couldn't stop your arcane damage if you timed it right. Just really cool card, and that is definitely one I hope sees more play and constructed as well. Just super cool design, and I love everything about it. And for the Dread Screamer, then that's also just one I've had a ton of fun playing. The go again is just so crucial there, and just a very strong and thematic card to be able to play in the Leviah deck.
Yeah, absolutely. Now here's a little bit of a fun one. Top 3 heroes you like to beat when they're sitting across the table from you.
Definitely. So number 3 for me is going to be Viscera. I enjoy the games on both sides of the table. It's a little more fun as Guardian, just having so many blues, and especially if I'm using Rampart, I just have a lot of resources I can play with, and trying to optimize how I'm defending against the arcane and physical damage like there. I just enjoy the matchup and defending as much as I like attacking and playing against that. But it's also just cool because your opponent can build their deck in a lot of different ways, either between mid-range strategy, something more aggressive, or maybe even OTK or something between the three. So you never quite know what they're going to be doing when you sleeve up and shuffle up against them, but always a match that I enjoy playing. Number 2 for me is going to be Dorinthia. And traditionally, Warrior's been a pretty 50-50 matchup against Guardian, and usually ends up being very skill intensive, back and forth, and just one that's always enjoyable and just down to the wire on both sides of the table. And number 1 for me, of course, does have to be Prism. The Guardian matchup has been horrendous in the past. There's probably nothing more rewarding than winning against a Prism, especially with the Guardian decks of yesteryear, where you've got maybe a 30-40% chance max of beating a Prism player.
Well, 2 of our 3 are going to be the same. My number 3 is Viscera. The games are usually good. I do like playing against Viscera, but it does feel good to beat Viscera. Mostly because Viscera, until Everfest, I mean, I guess a little bit after Tales as well, but like until Everfest, Viscera was kind of like, the underdog, bottom tier kind of like in the Azalea and Leviah area, and then all of a sudden, they're on top of the world, they got a little chip on their shoulder, and, you got to humble them sometimes, bring them back down to earth. So I always like beating a Viscera, especially since there's a lot of Viscera players in the Discord. They're always talking smack. Next, Prism. God, I hate this deck so much. I hate it a little bit less now that I've learned the matchup pretty well. But it just, I hate the snowball, like out of control annoyingness of Prism. So anytime I can beat Prism is a good time for me. And, I have to put Starvo at number 1 because, it feels like you got away with something if you beat Starvo right now. And I like getting away with something. And, you got to humble those Starvo players as well. So those are my top 3, sure, I named the best 3 decks in the format, but, I'd like to beat them.
Hey, no worries there. Totally get it.
Yeah. So, hey, this has been a great episode. We do have one more top 3. we always like to end the episodes with a little conversation about food. So I want to do a top 3 theme for the food, and I was thinking, let's do top 3 restaurant meals you've had all time, and I'll let you take it away, Drew.
Yeah, this one was pretty tough for me. Probably a number 3, and I feel bad because I totally forgot the name of the steakhouse. But really, this is so last year, 2021. Like pretty immediately after I was able to get vaccinated and kind of resurfaced from all the quarantine stuff with COVID, my wife and I took a trip to Granbury, Texas, and went to a steakhouse. And I mean, granted, this is my first time like sitting in a restaurant eating a meal in well over a year at that point. But it was just a fantastic steak and just really good meal. I got a ribeye there, had an old fashioned to drink with that dinner, and just some really good food and sides there. Number 2, it was pretty recent for me. I went to a steakhouse in the DFW area in Texas called Chamberlain's. I went for my buddy's bachelor party. It was kind of our celebratory meal for him. Also got a pretty giant ribeye there, medium rare, and just the sides, everything, just very well cooked and was fantastic. And then number 1 for me is probably going to be a place called Heim Barbecue in Fort Worth. Actually went here after the Calling in Dallas Fort Worth, and it may have just been one of the best because I usually at events I'm just snacking on granola bars and like little cashews, things like that at events like this all day. So I'm super hungry by the end, but I've got smoked brisket there, pork belly, burnt ends, and they had this amazing smoked mac and cheese with jalapenos and brisket in it. And oh man, it was just a fantastic meal.
Oh my God, I love barbecue. Oh my God, it sounds so amazing. I'm not much of a steak eater actually, but I do appreciate a good steak, and both of those steak meals have got me thinking about maybe I should venture out and go to a good steakhouse again. Those all sound amazing. My number 3 is it's at a Japanese sushi restaurant called Umai Umai in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I've been here a couple times, but it's some of the best sushi I've ever had in terms of creativity. They do a lot of cool different rolls and stuff like that. They even do these really cool ostrich egg shooters with oyster. It sounds weird, but it tastes very good. And I usually go because my mom lives down in Philly, and usually whenever I go there, it's with like her and my sister. So it's good to have like that family time. So I tie a lot of that to that experience, and it's delicious as well. Number 2 is at De Lorenzo's Tomato Pies, originally from Trenton, New Jersey, but Trenton unfortunately got a little bit too dangerous over the years, so they moved out of Trenton into Robbinsville, and I guess they have another restaurant in Hamilton, New Jersey. But this is the best pizza I've ever had, and I will die on that hill. It's a Trenton style tomato pie, which means it's a lot more tomato sauce and less cheese. I know a lot of people would kind of run away from that, but it's like thin crust, and the sauce is just perfectly made, and their sausage that they use there is absolutely insane. And whenever I go there with like family, it's always like we order like pies on pies on pies, and you leave there feeling like you got to be in a wheelbarrow, but it is amazing. And I'm actually going there tomorrow to visit a friend. And number 1 has got to be Eventide Oyster Company in Portland, Maine, which has the best lobster roll I've ever had. Everything there is incredible. And most recently, I went there for my 30th birthday with a bunch of friends, and we really had a ton of food. And I don't think I would ever give up that meal experience for anything. It was incredible. So those are our food. Drew, thank you for coming on. As always, it's been a pleasure. Please plug all of your things.
Awesome, Tommy. Thanks for having me on, and you got me hungry again, even though I ate like an hour ago.
Yeah, same.
Those sound amazing. So yeah, I really consolidated everything. The best place to check out my stuff, my Patreon, all my content, is going to be my Twitter. I got a link tree like cool people like Tommy did, and just have all my links on there from my Twitter bio. So that's going to be twitter.com at Drew J Cordell. So that's DrewJCordell. And that's going to let you check out everything I got going on through that link tree link in my bio there.
Yeah, and please do check him out. Obviously he's been on the show multiple times, and we know his content's excellent, and your writing is top notch. And look for some stuff. We have something coming out together on your side of things coming up too.
Yeah, we do. We got a video coming out this week. I'm excited for that, launching on the YouTube here, doing some commentary for a classic constructed game, and hopefully we'll have more of those coming out in the coming weeks too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was my first stab at commentary, and hoping to get some more practice, and it was a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to seeing the finished product. And everybody else, you guys can find me at Twitter at FreshBudsPod. You can email the show, freshbudspod@gmail.com. Everything's in the link tree. Join the Discord, the Buds. Drew's in there. He hangs out, posts some delicious food pictures all the time. And everybody have a great week.